Greetings, thank you for lending an ear to the Voice of the Times for Saturday, August 28, 2021. For today's editorial, a bad sign. During the surge of COVID-19 cases over the past couple of weeks, we have noted an alarming statistic that has not gotten much attention in the reporting of daily pandemic statistics. The percentage of coronavirus test samples with positive results has consistently remained at about 25%. For example, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, the percentages of positive tests, each one representing an infected person, were 24.9%, 25.5%, and 24.9% respectively. The high percentage of positive tests is a bad sign because it indicates that the government's efforts to determine the scope of the pandemic are at best inadequate. Without accurate information as to how many people are infected, achieving the goal of reducing the pandemic to a manageable level to allow normal activities to resume will take much longer than it needs to and might be ultimately unsuccessful. Taken at face value, the high percentage of positive test results suggests that 1 in 4 Filipinos are infected with the coronavirus, but that is unlikely. Nevertheless, it does not indirectly indicate that there are almost certainly many more COVID-19 cases than have been detected by the Department of Health or DOH. There are several reasons for what we might call this unseen pandemic. First, most testing remains voluntary and, more to the point, costly for individuals. The cost of the standard RT-PCR swab test ranges from 1,000 pesos up to as much as 6,000 pesos, depending on the facility. Even at the cheapest price, a test still represents a significant out-of-pocket expense for most people, and for many is simply unaffordable. Thus, most people seem to have themselves tested only when they are compelled to do so. For many of those people, about 1/4 of them, as the daily percentages of positive tests suggest, this is only when they have symptoms of COVID-19 or otherwise suspect they may have been affected. Second, the government's contact tracing program remains woefully inadequate. Ideally, contact tracing and testing should go hand in hand, with those identified as having potentially exposure to an infected person being tested, whether they have any symptoms or not, to reliably determine how far that person's infection may have spread. Then, of course, the proper follow-up would be quarantine, monitoring, and, where necessary, isolation and treatment of contacts to arrest the spread of the infection from a particular source. That is not being done as thoroughly as it should be. Where contact tracing is being carried out, most contacts are simply informed of their potential risk and given a recommendation to have themselves tested. Given the cost of testing, as explained above, it is reasonably assumption that at least some of these contacts opt not to do so. Finally, there are livelihood concerns for most people. Getting tested risks being quarantined or sent to an isolation facility in case of a positive result, preventing people who are already under a great deal of financial stress from working for a period of time, and possibly adding additional healthcare expenses on top of that. This is simply out of the question for many people. Not being able to provide for themselves or their families is perceived as a bigger threat than COVID-19. The situation is further aggravated by the dangerous spread of misinformation about the disease and treatments for it. So-called fake news that tends to downplay the seriousness of the illness by misrepresenting other countries' responses to it, or by promoting unproven devices or medications that promise an easy cure or prevention, leads to risk-taking and complacency. There are solutions to all of these problems, but it will require a much more intense effort than the government, and in reality, the nation as a whole has been willing to apply. Testing and contact tracing must be broadly expanded and the efficiency of both improved. Testing must be made available at much lower cost, ideally at no cost to individuals, particularly if it will be made compulsory as part of contact tracing as it should be. Finally, social and income support must be expanded significantly so no one is faced with the choice of hiding an infection or meeting their household's basic needs. And that's the editorial for Saturday, August 28, 2021. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram and listen to the Voice of the Times.